What's up, guys? Orcus here, and today we have another video. Today we're going to be going over some Star Wars hot takes that I have, and I have 10 of them ready. And honestly, I kind of just got inspired to do this video today when I saw a post about General Grievous of all things, of all characters and things in Star Wars. And it was a poll saying which version of Grievous is the best, and there was the 2003 one, the 2008, so on and so forth, all of his appearances. And a lot of people said that 2003 Grievous was their favorite, and it got me thinking. I was like, you know what? I think General Grievous is kind of too OP and is kind of too, hyped up because of that. I think he's too OP, so I don't like him all that much. And that inspired me to just make a Star Wars hot take video, because that right there is a Star Wars hot take. So again, I have 10 Star Wars hot takes. Let's get right into it. And like I just said, one of my Star Wars hot takes is that the 2003 General Grievous is too OP. And I think it might not be a hot take to say that, but a lot of people like him because he's OP. But I don't. I do not like General Grievous being that OP in the 2003 Clone Wars. You're telling me that General Grievous can easily beat most of the Jedi Council? I just do not think that's right. If General Grievous was as OP as he was from 2003 to the 2008 Clone Wars Revenge of the Sith, the Separatists would have won. Let's be real. If General Grievous can take out, if he can take out people like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Shaak Ti, like, what other Jedi are stopping him? He would at best stalemate, or at least stalemate Obi-Wan Kenobi at that form. I mean, Mace Windu, in Legends, he was afraid to fight General Grievous. The only people that could stand, like, a fair chance against General Grievous would probably be Yoda. Like, his 2003 form is definitely way too OP, and if he was like that in canon, the Separatists would have won. It would have been no contest. And then we see General Grievous in the 2008, or if we see him in Revenge of the Sith and gets easily bested by Obi-Wan Kenobi in a lightsaber duel. Like, he is not consistent with canon. His Legends form does not make sense. I don't like it. There are some things I do like General Grievous in 2003. Like, I like his, character. I like his style, how he talks, how he is as a character, but just how powerful he is compared to the Jedi, I do not like that, and it doesn't make sense to me. He's too OP, and that's one of my hot takes. My second hot take I have is also a pretty controversial one as of late, but what happened with Anakin in the prequel trilogy, everything that happened, everything he did is his fault. No, the council, the Jedi, the council isn't responsible for his actions. Padme isn't responsible. Obi-Wan isn't responsible. Heck, even Sidious isn't responsible for Anakin doing what he does. No, all of that is his own choices. It's all of his fault. He was the selfish one, and he paid the price for it and became Darth Vader. It was all his doing, not the Jedi Council, not the Jedi, not Obi-Wan, not anyone. All of that was his fault, and it is clearly stated. It shouldn't even be a hot take. It shouldn't even be a preference of an opinion. No, this was all his doing. This was his fault. He couldn't let go of his selfishness, and he paid the price for it, and it was deserved. And no, he really shouldn't have gotten a second chance. No, Obi-Wan didn't need to rationalize with him on Mustafar. He didn't need to talk him out of it. Like, it was all his fault, man. Like, you can't deny that. Even George Lucas himself has stated that. It was his selfishness that caused his downfall. He made a deal with the devil of sorts, and it didn't work out. And, he is a sympathetic character. I'll give him that. That's why so many people want to sympathize with him and say it wasn't all his fault. He was victimized and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, at this time, he's a grown adult, and you have to make the right decisions. And honestly, I can't say it's someone else's fault for him slaughtering younglings and genociding an entire order. Like, no, that is definitely your fault, my guy. The Jedi did not cause you to do that. No, that is on you. And, you know, you can't really, I mean, you can have sympathy for him, but everything that happens to him, like Obi-Wan trying to kill him, as he rightfully should have. Obi-Wan should have definitely tried to kill him there. He did not need to rationalize with him to turn him back to the light side. No, he just got done killing an entire Jedi Order, basically his family, and again, kids. Like, no, he was evil, like straight up evil in Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, everything that he did was his fault. He was scared to lose his wife because of a vision, the same one that he lost his mother in. Okay, like, that's the reason you decide to genocide younglings and an entire Jedi Order. And it's not just because of that. Like, Anakin at his heart, he craved power as well. He craved strength. It wasn't just because he wanted to save Padme. No, he desired to have power. He desired to be better than everyone else. He desired, you know, power and, you know, fame and all of that. Like, he wasn't just a two-dimensional person. No, he craved what you shouldn't crave. And again, that's why he became a Sith. That's why he was evil. But even though he was good as well, like, and of course he was redeemed. But yeah, I've talked a lot about this subject so far, and I still have 10 more. But yeah, what happened with Anakin was his own fault, not anyone else. They didn't make him do anything bad, and they really weren't even responsible for him being the way he was, to be honest. Sure, they could have helped him a little bit more. They could have helped him a little bit more, but I think they did give him help. Like, Obi-Wan was there for him as a friend. Like, he even tried talking with him about Padme. He knew what was going on with him and Padme. Anakin should have trusted Obi-Wan, but he didn't. And, you know, the council at the start, of course, they were wrong to him in The Phantom Menace when he was a child, but I think they were trying to do what was best for him. They were trying to help him, really, and it didn't work. But again, that's just it. What happened with Anakin was his fault. It is a tragic story, but I don't think people should be going around like, oh no, none of this was Anakin's fault. It was the Jedi that made him be this way. He was manipulated by Sidious. Yes, he was manipulated by Sidious, but he should have known that what Palpatine was saying, all of that stuff he was saying, especially in Revenge of the Sith, was wrong. But no, he desired to hear what Palpatine had to say. He enjoyed and felt good about what Sidious was telling him because he desired the praise, he desired the power, and you know, that's how he felt. So yeah, that's probably my most fired up hot take I have, to be honest. But with that said, let's get into the next one. And the next one, in my opinion, this is kind of a more recent one, but Andor is not even close to the best Star Wars. I will give people Andor fans some credit. Like, from their perspective, I can see why they think Andor is a good show. Like, definitely can be a good show. The writing, the cinematography, how the characters interact. You know, for a normal show, I think it's actually pretty decent. Like, it is not a bad show whatsoever. The only reason I don't like it is because it doesn't feel like Star Wars, and like the things that happen and the things people say and do and how they act and everything, it just does not feel like Star Wars at all. And it really doesn't capture the soul of Star Wars. But on its own, I think it's actually it would be a pretty good show. If it didn't have the Star Wars brand attached to it, I would think it's a pretty good show and I would have no problems with it. But because it's attached to the Star Wars brand and how it portrays itself, with especially Tony Gilroy outright stating he's not even a fan and doesn't even like Star Wars and doesn't care for any of the original characters at all, I think that's a little insulting. So if it wasn't attached to the Star Wars brand, and if it tried to be a show on its own, I think it would actually be a pretty good show. I probably still wouldn't watch it anyway, but I would have no issues with it. But then you have Andor fans being like, oh, this is this is some of the best Star Wars we've ever gotten. This is better than most of whatever George Lucas made. It's even on top. It even's better than Return of the Jedi and on the level of Empire Strikes Back. No, it's not. Get real. Have you even watched Star Wars? Are you even a real Star Wars fan if you believe that? Because if so, I think you're watching the wrong Star Wars. Like, how can you even say that? It doesn't capture the spirit of Star Wars at all. It really isn't even trying to be like Star Wars. Heck, if Tony Gilroy directed this show completely on its own, it would have zero resemblance of Star Wars. You can tell that Tony Gilroy didn't have complete free reign on this, or else, it wouldn't even look like Star Wars. Because you can tell, like, there wouldn't be the stormtroopers, there wouldn't be the TIE fighters, there wouldn't be the force healing. It would be so much worse than it already is if Tony Gilroy didn't have help from people that actually kind of understand Star Wars. It's not even close to the best Star Wars. Watch the original trilogy, watch the Clone Wars, heck, even watch Revenge of the Sith. And if you tell me Andor is more Star Wars than those things, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. You could say Andor. Honestly, I wouldn't even have a problem if you say Andor is better than Star Wars, but you cannot say Andor is some of the best Star Wars. If you're going to say Andor is like better than Star Wars, I don't have a problem with that, because Andor really isn't Star Wars. But because of your own taste, you might think Andor is some of the best Star Wars. Don't say that. Just say it's better than Star Wars, because Andor is not Star Wars. So that's just that's my take on that. I might, that might anger some people. I might be going too overboard with that opinion, but still, it kind of angers me, being a Star Wars fan since I was a kid, seeing people say that Andor is some of the best Star Wars we've ever gotten. It's kind of hard to hear that, honestly. But anyways, now to the next movie. This is an interesting take. Solo, I think, is a good movie and is overlooked by a lot of the fan base. And, it's been a couple of years since I've watched it, but from what I remember about it, it's really not a bad movie. I actually think it's a decent movie. I think whoever portrayed Han Solo, whoever his other actor was, obviously they couldn't have Harrison Ford play him. I forget his name. I knew his name, but I think that guy actually did a pretty good job portraying Han Solo. Seeing Chewbacca there was cool as well. Having Kira in the mix, Crimson Dawn being the villains. I think all of that was actually pretty interesting. And seeing Solo's kind of origin story, I think it worked very well as a movie, to be honest. I liked the characters. It was an interesting plot. Of course, it might have been, a little too, I guess, simple and kind of bland for a Star Wars movie, but I think it did its job pretty well for what they were going for. And I know they had a lot of production issues, and that's kind of why Solo feels the way it feels. But for that, I think it's still kind of a good movie. It's better than the sequels for sure, in my opinion. It's probably not better than any of the prequels. It's not better than any of the prequels, but it is better than all the sequels. It might even be better than the Clone Wars movie. So, you gotta give it that, at least. But I definitely think it is overlooked and kind of too hated by the fandom. And, you could probably say that's because of, it released during the sequels and, people weren't really that hot on The Last Jedi, and that's why Solo bombed in the theaters as well and didn't really get that good of reviews. But when I watched it for the first time, I didn't really have much problems with it. Again, one of the stupidest things in the movie is how Solo got his name, like Han Solo, because he's flying solo. Why would you? That makes zero sense, but I still think it was a good movie. It was kind of weird that how they put Maul in at the end, like that literally just went nowhere as well. And again, like I said, it is kind of bland for a movie, kind of kind of a weird plot, but I think it worked. It's definitely better than a lot of the Star Wars we've gotten recently. So I think, perhaps that's why I think it's a good movie and it's overlooked now, because of all the stuff we've gotten recently that's not really all that good. But I think it deserves some credit, to be honest. So that said, now to the next hot take. It might not be a hot take, but it's a take that isn't talked about enough. And it's that Luke Skywalker is the best written character in Star Wars, not including the sequels. We're not counting the sequels on that. Just on the original trilogy, his story in the original trilogy. Based off of that story, he is the best written character in Star Wars. And, a lot of people would say, oh no, Anakin / Darth Vader is, or Ahsoka is a better written character. No, I really think Luke Skywalker is the best written character in Star Wars. His story from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi, how he started off as kind of like a whiny, bratty teenage farmer on Tatooine with desires to, have a better life, make something of his life, be someone in the galaxy, to becoming a full-fledged Jedi, having known that he is the son of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and based on how he takes on that role, from just that, being a farmer, to saving the galaxy in one movie. And I think they do a really good job about that in A New Hope. It's like his story it's a really feel-good story in A New Hope, from being where he is at the beginning to where he is now, flying that X-Wing and destroying the Death Star. It's beautiful stuff. And that would have been an amazing story on its own for that movie. But no, they continued it into The Empire Strikes Back. He's still kind of the same person he was as a farm boy when he goes to meet Master Yoda and he's trying to be a Jedi. He turns, kind of back into that whiny, bratty teenager. But when he gets that training from Yoda and Ben Kenobi, he then, he's still kind of who he is. He goes to Cloud City because he can't get the visions of his friends dying out of his head. And so he goes to try to save them, and he gets humbled. He gets humbled hard by Darth Vader. And in a way, he kind of really loses in that movie. But then when you see him in Return of the Jedi, he's grown from that. He's wise. He's calm and collected at the beginning at Jabba's palace. And then, again, when we get to the end of the movie, when he's confronting his father and how he's trying to turn him back to the light side, and then when he almost gives into his anger at the hands of the Darth Sidious, from, again, the same point with his friends, but then he calm, cool, collected again. He's grown. He's grown past all of his, temptations and his dark side. He's a complete true Jedi by the end of all three movies, and everything that happened with that, it was great. It was a great story, and again, one of the best character writing I think we've seen in Star Wars. Ahsoka is definitely close, I would say, but I think Luke is probably the best for sure. Then we get to another hot take. I do think I have to blow through some of these because this is already a long video and we just got through half of them. But I think the path of a true Jedi is the best path to take in Star Wars. And this is kind of like an old take, or an old hot take, but I think the hate that the Jedi had, or that the Jedi got by a lot of the fan base, was very overblown. A lot of people see the Jedi as evil, prideful, arrogant, and maybe they're not evil, that's for sure. They were never evil in the prequels, but prideful and arrogant in the prequels, perhaps so. But they were never the bad guys. They were never evil. They were blinded by the dark side. They were blinded by the Clone Wars, and they let it happen with the Republic, and then, of course, Darth Sidious and the dark side clouding them as well. But they were never the bad guys, and you can see that even in the Clone Wars, when you see the Jedi make all their mistakes, but I feel like you would never see them as the bad guys. They're just people that make mistakes based off of what is going on. Like, I think their most heinous mistake was the Ahsoka arc. But even then, I think you got to see it from the Jedi's view. Like, the public opinion is turning against them, and you have all this evidence on Ahsoka. Even if you wanted to side with Ahsoka based off of this, you really couldn't, because one, the public opinion is definitely growing against you, and you don't want to seem like the bad guys, or you could be replaced and, you know, discarded. But you have a duty to fill. And based off of all the evidence that was going on with Ahsoka, I think it was honestly fair of them to kind of expel Ahsoka. All the evidence was stacked against her, and, you know, only the people closest to her would know that she wouldn't do something like that. But when you get to cases like that, you can't rely on what people think of someone to determine cases. No, you have to go with the facts and evidence. And there was definitely facts and evidence that really made it seem like it was on Ahsoka. So I don't really blame them for making that decision. And then I would say the other biggest glaring issue with the Jedi during that time was probably how they handled the Reiko Hardeen arc when they were trying to, you know, with Cad Bane and Moral Eval's plot, how they kind of lied to Anakin basically on Obi-Wan being dead. That was wrong. And even Yoda acknowledged that. Even Yoda acknowledged that it was wrong to keep Anakin from the truth of Obi-Wan being dead. But, I mean, like, it was a good plan, but it definitely was wrong, and Yoda acknowledged that, like I said. But, again, back to the main point, I think the path of a true Jedi is definitely the best path to take. I mean, look at Obi-Wan Kenobi. Look at Yoda. Those were true Jedi, true good people, people who represented what it was to be a purely good Jedi, and then especially Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi as well. All great Jedi, all exemplified what it means to be a true, not just good person, but someone who is, you know, just, again, someone that one can look up to. So that's definitely, you know, maybe not a hot take anymore, perhaps, but, or maybe it's just an overlooked take, because a lot of people seem to think the Jedi were the bad guys when that just really wasn't the case. They were people that made mistakes. But then to the next hot take, Star Wars animation hasn't been amazing. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people say this, especially Star Wars Theory, who I'm a fan of. I align with a lot of his views, but there are some that I don't agree with. When he says stuff like Star Wars animation is amazing and they never miss, and I hear not just from him, but a lot of other people, it's definitely, I definitely think it's over-exaggerated and overlooked. Like, if you really look at it, Star Wars animation hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been amazing. And this might be a pretty big hot take too, but like, when you go to Disney purchasing Star Wars, they come out with Rebels. Initially, Rebels was received very poorly by the fandom. It was determined, like, a lot of people viewed Rebels as not a good show. Like, actually, not a good show. They viewed it as too kiddie, the characters were whack, and the animation wasn't good. But a lot of people have changed their opinions on that, and a lot of people view it as a good show now. And I'm one of those people that view it as a good show. But there are some people that think Star Wars Rebels is one of the best shows that Disney has ever made. And I disagree with that opinion, honestly. I think Rebels is a pretty good show, almost great. I would say Rebels is like a B+ to a B tier show, but there are some things that I really don't like, especially the first couple seasons. It is too kiddie in my opinion. The animation, again, like I said, I don't think is that good. It's definitely not as good as the Clone Wars style animation that they do. And I think they have, you know, rightfully kind of gotten rid of that animation. They've never used the Rebels animation again. So I think that kind of validates my opinion on that. But Rebels, again, like I said, it's not an amazing show in my opinion. And a lot of people will disagree with that. That's cool. You guys can have your opinion on that. I'm definitely a lot more on the side of Rebels fans over Andor fans. Like, I definitely like Rebels more than Andor, so I definitely can sympathize with you guys a lot more. But other than that, you have the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, honestly, is probably not even as good as Rebels. It's probably a spot lower, like a B tier, maybe even B minus, because there's a lot of filler in that show, even more so than Rebels at times, in my opinion. Like, the Bad Batch isn't a great show, in my opinion. And then you have Star Wars Resistance. Who's watched that? And even with the people who have watched Resistance, they've said that it's not even some of the best. It's not even the best at all. Like, it's not that good. And then you have stuff like the Lego stuff they do, Freemaker, I think. There's also been some other short, Star Wars animations that they have that isn't really that notable. I think Forces of Destiny is what it's called. There's some good stories with that show, but that really isn't that great of a show, let's be honest. And then you got the Tales series. Tales of the Jedi, I will say, is amazing. Tales of the Empire, though, not really. And then you got the newly released Tales of the Underworld, which I think was pretty good, but I mean, I feel like not a lot of people really watch that, to be honest. So their animation department, I think, lately has definitely been lacking. The Maul show that they are coming out with that should release next year, I think, that could be very extraordinary. I'm very excited for that. And then, like I said, also Clone Wars Season 7. I mean, that one wasn't really, like, aside from the last arc, let's be real. The Ahsoka's journey with Trace and Rafa, that was really not good at all. And the Bad Batch arc, that was decent, but not amazing, let's be real. So, honestly, there's only been a couple really amazing shows that animation has come out with. The Clone Wars as a whole, I mean, the Clone Wars started with George Lucas, so, I mean, of course, that's an amazing show, for sure. And Tales of the Jedi, and perhaps Tales of the Underworld too. But other than that, there really hasn't really been that many amazing animation shows. So, and again, the animation overall might be better than the live action we've gotten, but that doesn't make it amazing. So that's a hot take that I have. The next hot take, we have 3 more left. I'll kind of keep these a little more brief. EU Star Wars and Legends power scaling and feats is very messy and very convoluted to, make sense with Star Wars canon, in my opinion. You're telling me that Sith Lords 1,000 to 6,000 years ago were more powerful or as powerful as the Jedi and Sith of the prequel era? No, I don't think so. And then you're telling me all of these random Jedi and Sith that come up after Return of the Jedi, they're all more powerful than the prequel era Jedi? I think no. Like, Luke Skywalker makes sense for sure, but how is Kyle Katarn on the same level as Darth Vader? That doesn't make sense to me. And then you're telling me, like, bad guys like Lumia, you're telling me Lumia is a match for Luke Skywalker. So if you're saying Lumia is a match for Luke Skywalker, you're telling me Lumia would perhaps beat some of the best Jedi in the prequel era? No. The Legends and EU power scaling and feats that some of the Jedi and Sith have is really, really messy. It doesn't make much sense at all. And then as well, like Darth Krayt in the EU, you're telling me Darth Krayt is more powerful than Darth Sidious? I mean, come on. Really? This is what we're doing? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it definitely needs to be explained a lot better. I think it would make more sense if, if there has to be a better in-universe explanation for how Sith and Jedi thousands of years ago would be as or more powerful than the prequel era Jedi, but then the characters like 30 years after the prequels are also more powerful than those Jedi who have had the best training, who have had the best experience with the Clone Wars and everything. It just doesn't make all that much sense to me. So yeah, I do have a problem with the EU Star Wars and Legends power scaling when it comes to the thousands of years before the Clone Wars and then like the 30 to 40 years after the Clone Wars. So that's another hot take. Another hot take I kind of have, this is a more recent one, but I think Ahsoka should have died in Rebels. So far, her story has honestly been kind of lacking. in the new Star Wars stuff. Like, it's cool to have her back. I am not denying that. I really enjoyed seeing her in Mando season 2 with her return. Even her stuff in the Book of Boba Fett when she's able to talk with Luke Skywalker. I think that's all cool. But based off of the Ahsoka show, I just don't. It hasn't so far been worth it for me for Ahsoka to not be dead. I think the better end to her story, or like, a better story that she would have, would be her dying in Rebels when she dies at the hands of Darth Vader, who was once Anakin Skywalker, her former master. I think that would have been a better story for her, rather than just continue to leave her alive. And so far, low-key, she's kind of been a replacement for Luke Skywalker. She's taken over the spotlight in this era of Star Wars over Luke Skywalker, when it's Luke Skywalker that should have the scenes. He's the one that should be the main character in this time of Star Wars. We're at the Mandoverse, like you could say the Mandoverse era, as people call it. Luke Skywalker should be the main character during this era, not Ahsoka. So it kind of ruins it for me, and it kind of makes me think that, so far, all the screen time she's had during the Mandoverse era, I don't think it's been worth it so far. And I think the better story so far would have been her dying in Rebels at the hands of Darth Vader. And then the last hot take I have is that I am hopeful for the future of Star Wars. It's crazy to say, but I am hopeful for the future of Star Wars. I mean, so far, we have Dave Filoni's movie. I think the Mando and Grogu movie will actually kind of be pretty decent. I think it will be a fun movie. Maybe not amazing, but I think it will be a fun movie, and it won't be that controversial. Like, it won't be torn to shreds. It won't be poorly made. I think it's actually going to be a good movie. And then, like I said, you have Dave Filoni's Tales of the Empire, or not Tales of the Empire. What's it called? Thrawn. That whole story. I forgot what it's called, but that whole stuff, I think that's going to be good. And then you have the Hidden Path stuff with Asajj Ventress and Cal Kestis in the Jedi games. I think that's all going to come back together, and I really do think we are going to see Luke Skywalker. So I am hopeful for the future of Star Wars, especially what they're doing with this Thrawn as the main villain kind of plot. I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for Ahsoka season 2 as well. I think that's also going to be a pretty good show to watch. I'm hopeful for the future of Star Wars. So that's another hot take I have, and that will be the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. I kind of spent a lot of time making this. It was kind of hard to come up with 10 Star Wars hot takes, but I knew I could do it. So yeah, that's really all I have. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.